Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Family and School Partnerships, Beginning the School Year Together. We will be getting started in about 2 minutes just to give everybody a moment to log on so we can begin as a group. Thank you so much for being here, and we really appreciate you being on time. So we'll get started very shortly. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for being here tonight at our webinar presentation, Family and School Partnerships, Beginning the School Year Together. So we would just love to welcome you and wish you happy back to school week and back to school season if you might be starting a little bit later than the Broward School District. So we're going to get right started and introduce ourselves. I'd like to introduce my co-presenter and co-worker, Ms. Deborah Cruz.
Good evening, everyone. Again, thank you for joining us today. My name is Deborah Cruz. I am a Quality and Education Coaching Specialist here at the ELC of Broward. I've been with the ELC for now 3 years, this past month, actually. I have been in the education field for about 10 years now. I've worked with older students, so like middle school age, and then but majority of my time has been with preschool age students, toddler students, as well as a education director back in New York City. A little fact about myself is that I have now been living in South Florida for 4 years. And I'll give the presentation back over to my colleague, Stephanie.
Thank you, Deborah. As I said, or as Deborah said, my name is Stephanie Templin. I am also a Quality and Education Coaching Specialist here at the ELC of Broward County. I've been here for 3 years myself, and outside of this organization, I've had many different experiences inside and outside the classroom in the early childhood education field. I've had the pleasure, of course, of being a teacher for multiple years. I've been a site manager for large central organizations. I've been an AC accreditation administrator, a coaching specialist, of course, and a few different roles. One of my favorite parts of my current role is to deliver webinars to our communities of educators and being able to bring this information directly to you for your convenience. So I'm very excited about tonight. And just something about me, I am a mom of a lovely, precocious 2.5-year-old who definitely keeps me on my toes, but showered me with hilarious gifts today. Bright blue orchid from Publix and a sleep mask that was sparkly and gold. So that was my fun moment from today. So welcome. So let's get started with our housekeeping, just so we're all on the same page and we know how to navigate our webinar this evening. You'll see that you have that orange rectangle with a white arrow pointing to the right. you can use for your panel. It will open and close that panel. And then we also have that questions triangle on the panel. You can type any questions you have throughout the training there. And then we also do have our handouts. We have 5 different handouts for you. You just click on the handout section, and then once you click on the document, the PDF will open, and then all you have to do is save that PDF to your computer or your desktop so you can easily locate it. So moving on, let's talk about attendance credits, your post-test and evaluation. So just as a reminder, all ELC Broward trainings are for those in-service hours only. And in order to receive your certificate, you must complete the post-test and the training evaluation survey, which you will find now in the learning management system. That profile and website where you went in and registered for this course is where you will find that information. You can also scan that QR code there to get to that website. And just to let everybody know that we want to make sure that everyone gets all the information. So any participant who arrives more than 50 minutes after the training will not be able to receive credit or of participation with the in-service hours. And if you leave before the training has ended, you also will not receive a certificate of participation of in-service hours. And you must be logged in from your own personal link that was emailed to you. If you're logged in from somebody else's link, we will not be able to record your attendance and not be able to provide you with that survey and evaluation form. So always be prepared to arrive on time and stay until the end of training. And also, in addition for attendance, you must be logged onto the computer with your email address, like I said, or download the GoToWebinar app on your phone. And please remember, upon completion of this training, once all the attendance information has been put into the system, a post-test and a training evaluation survey will launch in your learning management account, and you can scan this QR code with the camera on your phone to access your account for when it is available. And then please complete all this information, and then you'll be able to receive your certificate of participation in the LMS. And it's super easy. We have brand new certificates that look wonderful, and it's just been a really great, successful transition to the learning management system. So I'd like to applaud all of you for being able to navigate such a new, different way of registering for webinars and receiving your certificates. We've had a great participation rate, so we're very proud of everyone, and we thank you for your patience for at the beginning. We did have that glitch in the system that sent out an abundance of emails, so thank you for your understanding in that situation. So let's talk about our proprietary interests. We just want to reiterate that we have no vested interest in anything that we're going to discuss in this webinar, no product, instrument, device, or service or materials. And if there is a breach of this policy, you can just contact the email address below, elcbtraining@elcbroward.org. And if you have any other training questions, you can use that email as well. So let's talk about why we're here today. We're going to discuss our learning outcomes. So we have 4 things to achieve tonight. The first one is we would like to make sure that everyone is able to be able to describe the importance and have that understanding that families are their child's first teacher and lifelong educator, and it's up to us to instill that in those families and parents so they know that and they don't think learning just stops at school. And then we're going to talk a little bit about relationships. We're going to also focus on the role of the family's culture and language while communicating and developing a relationship. And then we're going to look at some best practices and strategies and tips to create opportunities for family engagement in different situations, such as back to school or family conferences, and just family engagement activities in general. And then finally, we're going to do a little bit of reflection, because that's how you are able to put what you learn into practice, is by reflecting and committing to making it something, making a change. So that's what we'll be committing to at the very end of this webinar. All right, we have our icebreaker to say hello to everyone. we can start in the chat box, and we would love for you to tell us in your own words, how do you define family? What is your definition of family? You can put that in the questions box located on your panel. Remember, you use the orange rectangle with the white arrow. So we'll give everybody a little bit of think time for that, but think about, how do you define the word family? What is your definition? And good evening to everyone who said hello, and we're glad you can hear us, and we are glad that you're here. So thank you to everybody in the chat box already. All right, and we have some definitions coming in. Thank you so much. So we first have a sense of belonging, absolutely. A group of people who have a sense of belonging together. And then we have Angela, who said, people who love you in spite of anything and everything. They always have your back. Absolutely, that important family support. People who you can always rely on. And unconditional love and support, absolutely. Group of people that support you and encourage you. Yes, we see this theme of support coming in. And family is when you have a great love for someone, trustworthy and reliable. And we see that it's really important to have people in our lives that we can rely on. People who love you. So we also see that aspect of love. All right, so thank you for everyone who put something in the chat box. We have a few more coming in. A group of people who surround you with love and caring. People who support you at any time. Excellent. A group of people that care about you. Yes, absolutely. That is a great definition of what family can be. So we're going to take a little poll here and get everyone's opinion of how do you define family. Thank you for those who have put it in the chat box already. Oh, and we have Maria here saying family is loving and supporting. So yes, that love and that support is very important to us. I see that in your responses. So let's launch this poll. And you can choose the definition that best suits you. And again, if you want to fill it in the chat box or the question box, continue doing that, because we're going to still be reading it. So how do you define family? So you're going to choose a definition and click the circle and hit submit. If you have any trouble, sometimes you might need to minimize the window. So we'll give everybody a little bit of think time to make their choices. So how do you define family? Do you define it as parents and children in one household, a group of individuals living under one roof, a group of persons of common ancestry, or a group of people united by certain beliefs? All right, excellent. We have 60% who have voted. Thank you so much for your participation. Keep putting in those answers. I would love to have as many people voting as possible. Awesome. We're at 80%. I think we can get to 85% tonight. So with the family engagement webinar, so we're going to really work on our engagement level tonight. So let's see if we can get it up to 80%. So if you haven't voted yet, please take a moment to vote. Everyone's vote is really important to us because it gives us the most accurate information and the most accurate feedback. All right, we're going to give it 10 more seconds. So any last votes can come on in. We have a few more. There we go. We might meet our goal. Up, and we did. Excellent. So let's close that and let's share our answers. And here we have that the most popular answer was parents and children who live in one household. And then I see a group of people united by certain beliefs comes in next. And then it's interesting that we have a tie for the third one, which is a group of individuals living under one roof or a group of persons with common ancestry. Deborah, what do you find is your choice of definition for family?
Oh, so, yeah. I was surprised that this was so diverse in terms of results.
It was, absolutely.
I think I probably usually would go with the first option.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think the first option, or yeah. What about yourself?
It's hard to choose from actually. And the good news is that, of course, there is no right or wrong answer with this one because these are all examples that were found in Webster's dictionary. So every answer is a professional, if you will, definition of family. So thank you everyone who participated. We had a great level of participation. So I'm really excited for this evening. And thank you everyone who added to the chat box here. And then we have mom, dad, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, and then family is good for growth and development. It is, Sandra, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. So keep that idea in mind. So let us continue on. And we like to wrap up this little icebreaker with this wonderful quote that states that some families are created in different ways, but are in every way a family. So there you go. So everyone's a little bit different. So like Sandra was saying, that it's very important for the family to be involved and to be a part of the child's engagement with learning because they are a child's first and lifelong educator. So we're going to look a little bit at family engagement research now. And where we're going to be looking as educators today, we're going to be looking at the NACCE 6 Principles of Family Engagement to guide us on what family engagement looks like. And then also the Head Start Parent and Family Community Framework will also guide us into different outcomes that we hope to achieve with our families and children. And just as a little bit of background, NACCE has a set of 10 standards for early childhood programs, and these standards were created with input from different educators and experts from around the country. These standards define what NACCE, or the National Association for the Education of Young Children, which is a really large organization of early childhood professionals, believes that all childhood programs should provide. So this is the best quality that you can provide is by following these guidelines through NACCE. So they have comprehensive best resources. So if you ever need a resource, it's a great place to explore. And they always have extensive research done on many topics. So they had extensive research on family engagement and pre-K and found that the 6 principles that we'll talk about really encompass well-rounded family engagement practice. But first, let's look at NACCE's recommendations for working with families. So we're going to look at that word actively. So we're going to hope that we're going to be actively involving those families, whether it is in person or it is online or it is through any means that works for you and your center at this time. But we want to actively involve them in some way. And then we're going to all, like we said, we want to help them realize the cognitive advantages of a child learning more than one language and provide them with support to maintain that home learning language, because in the past it was thought that it would be best practice to continue English in the home, but now we see that continuing and preserving that home language is really best practice for the best outcomes for children. So we need to be the educators for those parents so they know that they can educate their children in their first language. And then we want to make sure that we give them that confidence that at the center, that their cultural values from their home are honored and recognized, because we want to keep a continuity between the home and the early childhood provider. So it really supports the child's social, emotional, cognitive, and language development. And that is really what's the most important thing, is the outcome for the children. So we're going to quickly look at these 6 principles of family engagement. Is one of your handouts today. The first one we look at, it says programs and families participate in decision making and goal setting for the children. So they're really taking that active part in decision making in their education. So they're really goal oriented and partnering with you to have that agreed upon plan that are created between both parties, between yourself and the family. So there is a bridge. So there is consistency in the home and at school. So the child knows what is expected of them at all times. And then we really want to practice that engagement of two-way communication. We all know that is best practice, not always the easiest practice, but we just need to be creative and find ways that keep us on target with our communication goals. So we really want to focus on how the families and how much we frequently communicate through the school in a timely way that is ongoing throughout the school year, not just at the beginning of the school year, but we want to have regular communication with the families throughout the school year. And we can keep in mind that that communication can look very different in each program, but we really do want to see that continual communication and that reliable communication, knowing when and where to expect that communication to happen. And then we look at the third one, and we have programs and teachers engage families in ways that are truly reciprocal. So it goes beyond just kind of like exchanging a flyer or resources or information. And you really get those parents involved in the school or encourage their participation with whatever theme or whatever skill you're learning at school within the home, or when it is appropriate for your center in the center. And this will also give you the opportunity when you're working closely with these families to gain really nice insight on the child's life, their family, and their community. And you can really use this information to inform your teaching practices and work on your curriculum. And then we also said we were going to talk and touch base on the culture. So programs, it's important to provide learning activities for the home and for the community to create that sense of culture of expanding learning outside the classroom. And we want to provide materials or projects, ideas or experiences for those families and parents to enhance their child's learning at home, because they are going to be that lifelong educator. You might be in that child's life for 9 to 12 months, but that family is in that child's life for the long run. So we definitely want to keep that ongoing sense of learning. And then we're going to look and see that families or a group of programs invite families to participate in program level decisions and wider advocacy level efforts. So this is when you're ready to make that next step in giving your families a way to participate into the program. So you're really inviting them to make decisions about the school programming itself, whether it be a change in the family handbook or a change in the health and safety practice. You find a way to either incorporate all the families or a little panel of families, however that you see is best for your school. And then finally, we really want to talk about really implementing a comprehensive program level system of family engagement. So it's all about planning, and more planning between you, the teaching staff, you, the administration staff, to keep family engagement organized and ongoing. So what's the message that the administration staff is bringing to the families? What's the message that the teachers in the classroom are trying to bring to the families? And how can we make those messages support each other so the families are getting the same information from multiple sources, so they're more likely to act upon them? So now let's take a look about what the research says and why it is so important to involve these families and get this level of engagement. So we see that in the early years of a child's life, there are critical times to foster bonds between the child and their families. We want to foster those bonds because those families are their lifetime learners, and to establish those positive relationships that promote that cognitive development, that social and emotional development as well. So we want to get those positive relationships supporting the child's overall development. And also we see that through some more research that family engagement plays a very important role in the child's school readiness, which really influences, like we said, that social emotional development and also their academic or cognitive competencies. So that is really important to note. And these effects have been found all the way through 12th grade and beyond. So it's really important to note that family engagement is a lifelong engagement and also improves not only teach-child-family relationships, but also teacher-child relationships to have a smooth transition. Because if you're modeling a positive relationship with that family member or that parent, then that child feels more comfortable with you because they see that their family member is comfortable with you. So it's really important to see that. So let's take a look now, change gears and look at the Head Start Family and Community Engagement Framework. It's a nice visual tool that a program, families, and parents can use to build effective partnerships together. It was designed, like I said, by the Head Start Parent, Family, and Community Engagement team. And it describes how parents, how programs and families and communities all work together to promote the child's healthy development, learning, and really look at these family and child outcomes, which are really important to see. So we want to see those great family outcomes and child outcomes. So we see in the blue column right there are our family outcomes that we can really use as our goals for the school year. And we can also include or focus on the child outcomes and use those as our goals for the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, the end of the year, or the entire year. So what I'm going to ask everyone to do is take a minute, look at the blue and purple column, and choose one or two outcomes that you would hope to achieve this year as an educator in a preschool program. What do you find important to be important outcomes personally to you as an educator? So I'll give everybody a little bit of think time. So once again, you can choose a family outcome or a child outcome from this chart. I have a little guide here that will help you read the chart as well. So we can really look at the family and child outcomes. And you can see how all this impacts itself. The program foundations, leadership, impacts the program areas of environment and partnerships and community partnerships, which directly then affects those family and child outcomes and the teaching and learning as well. All right, we have some people nice and fast on their chat box speed today. So remember, you can put your goals for your family or child outcomes for the school year inside your questions box and submit that. But we'll read some that we are going to have family engagement and transitions, which is great because what is bigger than a child transitioning to one group of children to another, to one teacher to another, to one program to another, to one school to another. So we do really see that transitions are a place where we need to have support. And we want to see parent-child communication. Absolutely. Communication is so important for the families to continue that language development at home and having them communicate in back and forth exchanges and utilizing vocabulary and asking open-ended questions to really keep that child critical thinking skills fresh and those brain connections happening. And then we also see we want them to be successful in life and school. And we know as educators in the 0 to 5 population, this is a very important time of life. If they get the best of the 0 to 5 education that they can get, these children will have higher outcomes with their success in life and school. So that is such an important responsibility. And then we see we want to support families as lifelong educators, and we have future success in school and life again, learning and development, absolutely, positive family relationships with the child. Children are safe and learning, and children are going to need to feel extra safe and learn while they're learning at this time of year and the situation that we find ourselves in. So that is a really important goal, and it's very important for this family outcome to see that a child learns in their school and takes it takes what they're learning, such as English or a theme, and brings it into the home and teaches, and the child becomes the teacher at home as well, which is awesome to see because they take on that responsibility and ownership, and they display their learning in different ways. So it's so great to see when they cross paths with what they're learning at school and they bring it home. My daughter is one of those children who is really great at watching actively, but participating actively is kind of not her thing because she's not into like large groups. But she knows every single thing that has been said, and she has understood everything that you've talked about and everything that has been discovered within the activity, and brings it home and will recreate the activity here. So, children all learn in their own different ways. So let's continue on, and we're going to focus on building this relationship now and the role that culture and communication plays in it. So we're going to turn this next section over to Deborah.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. So again, yes, we want to talk about those relationships and how important they are, and just that importance of creating a welcoming environment for all of the families that enter your classroom, right? So as educators, it's going to be best to start off the school year intentionally building those relationships with their students, but also their families too. So you can create this level of trust between the educators in your school and the parents or the caregivers. It can also just have that boost of engagement, and student outcomes may improve when there are those strong foundations provided. So we actually have our first poll for you this evening, and it states, although learning takes place at school, a child's first teacher is their parent/guardian. So we believe this statement is a true or false statement. Stephanie is going to launch that poll now and then give you all the opportunity to choose one of the answers. Okay, so it looks like 100% of you do agree that this statement is true, right? And we kind of just briefly talked about it, that although learning takes place at school, a child's first teacher is their parent/guardian. This is exactly correct. So we have to be mindful that families are the child's first educator, right? So they are going to be able to have information and experiences that we are not aware of. And as teachers, we have to make sure we have different perspectives as children spend the majority of their waking day with us at school, but we have to be sure that we're taking parents' information and all of those things into consideration as well. So how can we promote diverse family structures in the classroom? So what would that look like to you if we have this great diverse environment? So one thing that you might want to consider is to have a family tree in your classroom, right? So that could be that students are having those, yep, and I see someone did put in the chat box, those family collages, exactly. So you can encourage your students to bring in photos of their family and have that displayed in your classroom. If you have any students that are on that no photo list, you can have those students, just draw a picture of their families and then have that displayed as well. It'd be nice if you can to have this placed in your classroom throughout the entire year. This way families can feel free to update the photo, especially if there are any new changes or new additions to that family. So it just has that update reflected. Think about also the visuals and maybe the materials that you're using in your classroom. And I do see that someone did put that information down too. So kind of having that international theme, so a play of culture and foods and pictures, so which is what we're briefly talking about right now. So maybe, there's a difference in the characters in your dramatic play. So maybe the characters or the dolls in the classroom should encourage some inclusion. You might want to add grandparents, to the dollhouse area. And, just be sure that the children in your classroom can see themselves displayed in the room. And there may also be displays around the classroom that include photographs of pictures of people from around the world, clothing in the dress-up area from various places. And even in the art area, you should be sure that the materials presented would allow students to either cut or color images of various skin tones, right? That's going to be really important as well. So think about cultures and traditions. That's definitely a really big part of children and their families and their lifestyles. So you can have a worksheet or something similar to the one presented on the slide right now. It just allows students to engage in conversations at home, and they can have that sense of pride when they're sharing it with their fellow classmates. It also encourages conversation to take place with their parents or caregivers, and it provides children with possible new information that they might not have known in the past. And really, it just gives a wonderful opportunity for other students and you as a teacher to know a little bit more about that culture and about that student. So another big way that you can have this diverse environment is with the books that you have in your classroom and on display, right? So books are just an excellent way to start and introduce different types of family dynamics. So this representation is especially important to children in your classroom who may have different family structures than their peers, right? Something quote unquote, not as normal or traditional as a lot of their classmates. So representing different kinds of families in picture books is one of the most straightforward ways to showcase diverse families. And now we have our second poll of the evening, which states, it is important to showcase a diverse range of family dynamics in your classroom. So Stephanie just launched that poll, and you can decide if you believe that statement is true or false. We'll give everyone a few more seconds to choose an answer. Okay, so let's see. And again, you guys are definitely right on the money this evening. That is a true statement, right? If we have this opportunity to have all these diverse ways in which we can showcase our family dynamics in the classroom, it's definitely a really important thing to do. And now, so we've already talked about certain picture books and the importance of it in showcasing those diverse family dynamics. We really wanted to share this story with you today, which is a family is a family is a family. And it's really just going to touch upon all those different dynamics of families. And we're going to play this briefly for you. And it's just a read aloud of it. And we really hope you enjoy it. Okay, so yes, we really love that story, something that we really enjoy. And just as you were hearing it, definitely I feel like this is a book that you can have in your classroom and great for a read aloud. Were there any parts of the book or any sections that really stood out to you? And I'll let everyone have an opportunity to respond to that question in the chat box. And for myself, I know one section that I really liked was about, I think it was like one of the few pages in, about there being so many members of the family. So for me, coming from a very large family of so many siblings, that part resonated to me. And then, of course, at the end of the book, where someone asks the woman, where are her real children, right? And I see a few comments are coming in too, where Angela said, yes, I love when she said, I don't have any imaginary children. Like, what a great response that was. So definitely, I feel like if you're a child in this, in a classroom, you would pretty much feel that your family dynamics would be represented in this book, since it just touched upon so many different ones, in terms of, you know, big families and families that are separated or adopted, or you know, grandparents involved. So that was really great too. I guess, and someone said, yes, the same-sex parents too, right? To just understand that these are just how family dynamics look like. And someone else said one of their students is adopted by two moms. Yeah, so that's great to like really touch upon that. And I like how someone stated, I like how children can relate and find similarities within their own family. And yes, they love the message of the book. So definitely, if this book resonates with you, you know, I feel like this would be a great one to invest in and have in your classroom, especially as we're at the beginning of this school year. So thank you all for your comments. So when we're representing also those family dynamics or the diversity in your classroom, you can do so through highlighting and incorporating some of that home language. So in South Florida, it's so common to have children in your classroom that speak multiple languages, or that they have multiple languages represented at home or within their family dynamics. So just having those simple phrases such as hello, good morning, goodbye posted in your classroom can really be welcoming. And this simple task can really make all the difference between those ESL families and provide some level of comfort to them too. So you can think about if you've ever displayed different languages in your classroom. And that's actually our poll right now. So do you have the languages of families in your classroom displayed? Is it yes, no, sometimes? So maybe one year you did and the following year you did not. You can also think about, as you are, you know, starting up the school year, if this is something that you might want to consider doing in the weeks to come. Someone said, I think that they have languages in different, I'm sorry, counting in different languages. When we have a child who speaks a different language in my class, my children make it a point to learn a few words and how to count to 10. Right. So that's wonderful, and like how inclusive of an environment that is. And I'm sure it makes that student feel particularly welcomed as well. Okay, so we're gonna display those results to the poll. And 63% of you are actually doing this. So you do have certain languages displayed in your classroom, right? So more than one. And another 18% that says that this is something that sometimes they have done it, in the past, and other times they have not. And another 20%, so this is something that they haven't done in the past. But maybe, again, as we're entering this new school year, if you find that you have different languages spoken, this may be something that you want to incorporate. And another thing that you might want to just make a point in your classroom is really just to have conversations with your students. Allow children to notice and to talk about those differences. So it might seem a bit obvious, but it can be tricky to know how to navigate a conversation when a student, blurts out something that adult would never say. But it is very natural for children to make observations and ask questions about race, about gender, about family structures. So don't shy away from these kind of conversations or try to ignore them. Instead, be prepared to hold a discussion and have children ask or answer questions. And these conversations and interactions are going to be a great opportunity to begin supporting a very inclusive environment, and for children to understand a bit more of that identity development in early life. And at this age, children are usually very welcoming and understanding of differences. So this is a perfect opportunity to talk about it. And now I'm going to turn the presentation back over to Stephanie, and she's going to talk a little bit about that family engagement portion and how do we get our families involved.
Thank you, Deborah. So let's continue on and let's talk about that effective practices to welcome our families since it's the beginning of the school year and really engage our families. And we can do that in multiple ways and multiple venues as well. So we're gonna keep that in mind as we move forward. So what is family engagement? How is it done and why is it done? We just want to reiterate the importance of why we're doing this. So family engagement is that collaboration and that process where your teachers and families and children build those goal-oriented relationships about the child's learning. So it's a shared responsibility for this partnership. It's not all on you. There's a part on the family as well. So there's a shared responsibility of mutual respect to keep this going. And family engagement also, like we just discussed with Deborah, and she pointed out so beautifully that we focus on that culturally and linguistically responsive relationship with the key family members in a child's lives. So it includes anyone who would be considered an adult caregiver, and that really creates an opportunity and a commitment for you to create and sustain ongoing partnership with different caregivers in that child's life. And we also want to talk about why again, and it's central to a child's healthy development, school readiness, and well-being for families to be engaged in their education and with their school. So that is what we want for our children, and that is our ultimate goal as educators, of course, is to have those optimal outcomes for every one of our students. So we're going to break engagement down into 3 pieces this evening. So we're going to talk a little bit about starting the school year and all that back to school fun. Then we're going to talk about daily and weekly and monthly communication and what's happening and what's effective for each family. And then we're going to talk about different ways that we can traditionally involve our families to participate in the program that work very well and really create a bond, and also some new and different ways that you can probably find ways for your families to participate. So we will go through that. But first we have our next poll, and we are curious to know your opinion. In order for communication to be effective, it should always take place formally. Is that true or false? And we have to think about communication as, we're looking for information about the child and the family and trying to figure out what's going to work best for that child. So should that always be done formally, or can it be done formally and informally? What do you think? So we're going to launch that poll now. So we are getting really great and fast with these polls. So I think we can hit even a higher percentage of engagement of poll taking Yes, we're already halfway there, so keep putting it in. It's very interesting. See the results of this one. So we're going to need everyone's vote on this one, so keep voting. It's getting close, so we need to know what's out there. So make sure everyone is voted, and if you're not able to vote for some reason, if it's not working on your computer, you can try minimizing that window or also type it into the questions box. Okay, we're going to give it 5 more seconds. I think we get a few more votes in. This is the time. In order for communication to be effective, it should always take place formally. Is that true or is that false? Let's find out. So we're going to close our poll now. Thank you for everyone who answered so quickly. This is like we just blew our last record out of the water because this one is even higher. So great responses, everyone. So let's close and let's share. So this is very interesting, Deborah. Look at this. Our answers are quite close to each other. Half of the group, 47%, feel that it should always take place formally, and then 53% believe this is false, and they believe that communication can take place formally and informally. What do you think of that result, Deborah?
I actually find it to be pretty interesting that it's pretty split up, right down the middle almost.
Me too. I don't think we were expecting that this evening. So it's very great that we had everyone participate in the poll so we can see where we're all at. So that was a fun one. I like when we get surprised. Keeps us on our toes.
Exactly.
So we're going to talk a little bit about family engagement, and we're going to talk about the formal ways of family engagement, but we're also going to talk about informal ways too, and how those moments can be just as effective in collecting information, communicating information, and really using information and implementing it into practice. So we have something we call a little chat box check or question box check. So we would like to know, what form of communication do you like to use best with the families in your school? Is it face-to-face? Do you have an app? What form of communication is your personal favorite? Not what you're mandated to do, but which one do you prefer to do? Which one do you find most effective as an educator in this field?
And Stephanie, so I just wanted to clarify for that last poll question that
Oh, sure.
is indeed false, correct?
Absolutely, because we can have communication formally and informally. So we're going to talk about both of those opportunities.
Exactly.
So
Just those conversations that you have with your parents, those are informal, but those are still definitely effective ways to have conversations with them.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, let's look at the questions box. We have a variety of forms. Face-to-face seems to be very popular. We have someone who prefers to use the app. Face-to-face and working on being transparent, always so important as a preschool professional and as a parent. Being transparent is so important for all parties involved. Face-to-face again, and there's some tablet activities. And we really enjoy to send notes, text, and talk to your parents. I think that's great. You're using a variety of ways. And just talking informally is any chance you get. And some people feel like texting is a little too clinical, so you really have to look at your audience, the age group of your audience. I personally love a text, but that means I'm just like a really busy person, and I don't really take a lot of phone calls. But every group of families is going to be different, so collecting information and finding different ways and a variety of ways to communicate with your families will be best practice. And we have one-to-one conferences, notes. Yeah, so really diversifying the ways that you really update your families of what's happening in the classroom in general, specifically to the school and specifically to their child. So now that it's August, we're going to talk about welcoming our families back to school and some practices and strategies we can use to welcome these new families. And we understand that right now we're in a peculiar spot where We expect it to be probably in a different place when it comes to engaging our families. So we're going to talk about the best ways that we can provide welcomes in person as well as hybrid models. So let us look at our first strategy that we hope you're including, because gathering information from families can, like we said, occur informally or formally, like in a document, because our families are just a wealth of information and we really want to get their perspective onto their needs. So it is a great strategy at the beginning of the year, at this time of year, to maybe perhaps present a student or family questionnaire. And in this questionnaire, you can see the example on your screen. I'll let you look at it for a moment. But is there anything in this questionnaire that you might want to add that would make this questionnaire more successful and valuable to you as a teacher? What in this questionnaire would you like to see enhanced? Like I said, we provided this as a sample for you to build off of. So what do you think would be a great addition to this questionnaire? What is something important for you to know about your child's family? We'll give everybody a moment to think, time to read through that questionnaire and think of how can we improve it? All right, we have some answers coming in, so we'll give it a couple more moments to let everyone continue typing in their questions box. All right, so let's look at some of our answers here. They're coming in fast and furious now. So one big one that I think absolutely is my first choice of what I'd like to see happen is ask them what language they speak at home. And that is very important information. And I see someone else use something similar, and it's great. It really comes in handy to know about the child, but knowing if the child has any specific fears, absolutely know that before something occurs, because that will help them be more prepared for school, and that'll help you be more prepared for any situation that might pop up. Do they have any siblings? Absolutely. What's that dynamic? One child who's an only child is going to act vastly different than a child who has older siblings or younger siblings. So that is so important to understand about their behavior. Let's see what else we have. Do we have any positive or negative school experiences that we feel you should share? Absolutely. That is a great one. I haven't heard that one before. I think that would be a wonderful one to put in there, because there are those families who have to change schools because things did not fit so well. And it's important for the teachers to be aware of that, and the administration, so they know how to support the family and the child best when they know what is already happening within the child. And we have a few more here. It's great for better communication. Absolutely, Sandra. Let's ask them what their allergies, and Madeline put it in there too. And what age group did the children usually play with? I agree. That's a great question, Candy, because I know my daughter particularly, like older kids kind of play with her more often because she's a little quiet, but they'll engage and encourage her to play with them. But she doesn't really gravitate to the younger children, but she's an only child and she usually just deals with adults. So it kind of makes sense for her. So knowing what age group they prefer is very important, because that's how you're going to see their social emotional well-being develop. And this is great because all this information does lead to better communication, gives us some background information, especially at the beginning of the year for children who might be uncomfortable coming to school. And it just also knowing about the child and having the child know that you know about them gives them that great source of self-esteem. So thank you everyone for your feedback in the questions box. So that is excellent. And like we said, we put this one in our handouts as a great sample. And like we said, you can definitely just save it and then build onto it and add some extra pages to it if you like where it's going, but you thought of some more ideas. So speaking of data collection, we can also look at family surveys and look at how often we are offering them. Many schools do family surveys at the end of the year, but perhaps looking at broadening your scope of when to take surveys, and especially at this time where everyone has a particular opinion about what is best for their child right now to keep them healthy and safe. So maybe having a beginning of the school year survey to touch base with the families and see what their expectations are. Then that middle of the year school year touch base, see, are we all on the same page? Are we providing what the families expected? Is there something that we can change to enhance and reflect upon and, um, you know, increase and enhance for the end of the school year? And then that end of the school year survey, which is so important about their overall experience in your program. And there's a lot of great samples online that go into a lot of great detail, and it is very valuable when you get the perspective of the outside looking in. So I definitely recommend this as another great strategy for your program to provide family surveys and family needs surveys too, because families are sometimes more willing to talk about the supports they need within a document like this. And what's great is you can have this on paper and you can make it available and send it off in like SurveyMonkey electronically as a PDF, so the families can easily fill it out in whatever form that is most comfortable to them. So definitely think about if you're not already using that strategy to incorporate family surveys and the data that they can really provide to your program. And then we just have a cute little parent-teacher night picture here, which I just think is preschool humor at its best. It just says, Mr. and Mrs. Crawford, I recognize you from Julia's drawing, which is hilarious because they look exactly like Julia's drawing would be for a typical 3 or 4-year-old. But she's a really great teacher because she knew that student-specific drawing of her parents looked just like that. So kudos to this teacher and kudos to Julia's drawing abilities because her family is adorable. So when we go to back to school ideas, tips, and practices, it's really important to think about how your families are going to meet the teacher. How are they going to meet you? What is their first impression of you going to be? What is important for you to get across that first meeting? And how are you going to do it? Are you going to do it verbally? Are we in person, or are you a hybrid or virtual back to school event for your school? Everyone's going to be in a different situation to meet their teacher. So, we can provide different forms and paperwork that provide information about teachers. So the child and the family get to know a little bit about you as well, because it's so important, like we just said, to know about the families and to get all that information about the families. But now as a parent and as a past preschool educator, it's really important for the teacher to be able to get across a little bit about themselves, and also a great way to provide contact information and also put your favorite things on that. It's so great. It's such an easy way and a wonderful way for families to connect. And you can go super fancy and technical with the QR code there, or you can go super simple with a template that everybody uses where you just kind of fill in the blanks, make it specific to that classroom. So just important to reach out to those families. And if we're trying to minimize our paper use or just physical contact with things, you can always make a QR code with your contact information and just information about you in general. And that's really easy for the families to scan and access. So don't forget that sometimes technology is a little frustrating, but it can also be our friend and really provide a great source of connection. So we have some photos of what some awesome back to school activities look like. We see families engaged, children engaged, smiling, adults looking at each other, making connections in the classroom. And I love that this one on the right is they're outside and they are maybe that's something to consider for this year is, if you still want to keep it in person, maybe utilizing your outdoor space. Or if you have to, make it a virtual option or a hybrid option. because I can tell you as a parent, I really wish there was a hybrid option this year because it was really difficult for me to get to my daughter's open house this year. So it is okay to offer both and meet the families in all different ways. So this is also how we can also look at our back to school night. Okay, so let's talk about daily communication because there have never been so many ways to talk to somebody. So let's talk about how you think communication can take place. Is it by email, by phone calls, face-to-face, virtual, or all of the above? How communication, how does it take place between families? What would be the best practice? All right, everyone's voting nice and quickly. Excellent. I do want to be mindful of time, so vote when you can so we can see our results. Because we have a lot of great information. We want to make sure that we get to everything, of course. All right, let us close this poll and share the results. And face-to-face got a little recognition, but we feel that our best practice for communication is that it can take place through all of the above. And that is exactly the best practice because we have to look at our parents and our population of family members and see what is the best way for them to communicate and find ways to deliver that diversity of communication on a consistent basis. So let us look at this short clip of family and community engagement tips. We're going to share this quick video with you now. And that was great advice from Dr. Karen Mapp there. And I especially love that communication and talking about the positive, especially at the beginning of the school year. So let us look at social media for a second and really understand that it is great to use when we cannot be in person so much. And it's also great to use when we are in person. It also helps communicate a general message and a specific message. So what is the administration trying to get across? What are the teachers trying to get across? And how can we make those messages go together and support each other? And also, in addition to all the great ways that social media has let us communicate to our families, How do your families communicate? Are they all on Facebook or are they all kind of on WhatsApp? I I don't personally know because I don't really even understand TikTok. So, do some investigating too before you decide what's going to be your primary source. And then continuing communication, you can always throw in those great notes from home, have a communication log to really get that documentation of what's happening with that child, and also finding ways to celebrate that child's successes. And we would recommend that any type of disciplinary or challenging behavior conversation or something that is a little bit more challenging to communicate be done in person, if and when possible, or at least through a virtual platform where you can be face to face. And speaking of face to face, AP1 is coming up. So a lot of people will start having those teacher family conferences. So make sure that you are ready to discuss what the child is doing, how they're meeting, exceeding, or needing support in different areas. Have different notes and reminders about when they can come in, have scheduled appointments if possible. That's the best way to maximize everybody's time. And have work samples out and those reports out from Bright Beginnings that will really support you in your observations. So let's get our families involved. And how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to have to do that in a little bit of a creative way and traditional way. Reading has always been such a great way to bring the families into the classroom, share their culture, share their language, or just share their family's favorite ritual or story. And then we want to invite those families to come in and share their culture in whatever way they find best. A lot of cultures focus around tea and tea ceremony. So you can have a family come in and describe and display a tea ceremony. And then you can use your parents' strengths and find different ways for your parents to volunteer. And then think about it. What are some other great ways that you and your school have done? And we're going to talk about some additional ways that we can get involved and honor our families. We have found that Family of the Month is very accessible and very powerful to be recognized as a family of the community. So you can post this on your social media platform, send a flyer home, or put it on a parent board that's accessible, and celebrate a family of the month and have them fill out like a little questionnaire so you can talk about them and celebrate their strengths. And then always, we just want to keep in mind that despite even health concerns, families are busier than ever. So providing on-demand or recorded options and those live options virtually are really beneficial and important. So really consider how you can be very creative and flexible with your families. And we have a great list here of virtual and hybrid events such as story time, a special music activity, if it's on Zoom, a home scavenger hunt to get the family involved, a STEM activity with household items that can be done in the classroom or at home. These are all great ways to virtually and in person engage with your families and get them as those child's first teachers. So we're curious about this last poll we have for you. With fewer COVID restrictions and schools reopening, virtual events can no longer take place. Is this a true statement or is this false? We want to know. So it is our final poll. So let's make it our best poll. Let's get everybody's opinion. Every vote counts. So everyone, please quickly fill out that poll and we will be able to sum up our learning for this evening. Oh, the answers are interesting, so keep voting, everyone. I want to get an accurate portrayal of our perspective. With fewer COVID restrictions and schools reopening, virtual events, hybrid events can no longer take place. Is that true or is that false? All right, we have a majority that has voted. Thank you, everyone, for being so receptive this evening. We're going to close that and share it out. And interesting enough, we had 29% believe that is true. But with fewer COVID restrictions and schools reopening, we do encourage virtual events to take place. So this statement is false because those virtual events are really supportive of those working families who work odd hours, not the typical 9 to 5, or have other children at home. or have other health concerns that they can't really attend at this time. So really keep in mind a way to create virtual or hybrid options or ways for your families to be engaged and informed. So thank you for participating. So just keep in mind that answer is false. With fewer COVID restrictions and schools reopening, virtual events can no longer take place. That is false. We always have an option. So now it's time to sum up everything with Deborah, and we're going to do some reflection now.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Stephanie. So yes, we're gonna just kind of reflect about what we just talked about this evening. And the first way we're gonna do so is we are gonna watch a brief video clip, and it's called Supporting Families to Boost Student Success. And we'll take a look at that now. Okay, so I really love that video there. And so as that reflection piece, what we want to ask everyone now is just to think about if you had this opportunity to host one of these family engagement events at your school, what would you want to discuss? What topics do you think would be important for your families? So take a moment to think about that, and feel free to respond into the question box so we can hear some of your responses this evening. And it was, yeah, someone said too, yeah, great to showcase a single parent household, especially a male. And yeah, we definitely agree with that as well. Great video and working with parents. Yeah. So yes, again, think about what you would want to see in your school. Okay, so we have some responses coming in now. The milestones that their child has reached. So having those discussions take place, right? And then you can possibly discuss if that child is at their milestone, if they've achieved it, if they're maybe falling a little behind, how they can help that parent, right? How to assist new mothers and fathers. I'm sure that would be greatly appreciated, right? That's a lot. So that would be really awesome to have something like that take place. Just showing that there's a sense of community, positive discipline. That one's a really good one, right? Having those conversations take place. What I love too in the book, I'm sorry, in the video was that they showcase, you know, those open-ended questions for families as well, because that's something that maybe some of our parents don't practice at home. Someone else said to help parents see how their children day goes and what they are learning. Definitely. So, you know, this may be something that you will consider having at your school this year, how to comfort a strong-willed child. Yes. Well, we need to connect with families in order to improve the education of their children. Exactly. You know, a lot of our parents do want to be involved. They just may not know exactly how to make those first steps. So an event like this would definitely be positive for everyone involved. And so this is something definitely you might want to consider implementing in your school year. And yes, checking on that child's development. So as we wrap everything up, let's think about our learning outcomes this evening. First, we got together and we described the importance of understanding that families are the child's first teacher and their lifelong educator. Afterwards, we discovered the importance and the roles of the family's culture and language while communicating and developing a relationship with the students and families. Then we were able to identify different strategies, practices, and tips to create those opportunities for family engagement, right? That's that piece that Stephanie went over. And finally, we did a bit of a reflection to just express the current program that you have and the practice and reflect on different ways how we can implement them. So we have a list of some of our resources, and they are actually within your handout this evening too. So you can just click on that and download it if you haven't done so previously, and you can do that now. Feel free to download them and save them into your computer if you're on one right now. And your certificate. So remember, upon completion of the training, there will be a post-test as well as a training evaluation survey that's going to be sent to you in your LMS account, that account that you signed up for when you signed up for this particular webinar. So you can even scan the code right now too with your phone, and then you can have access to that survey and post-test later on through that code. And please remember that you have to complete both forms in order to receive your certificate. So you can just use your login password in order for you to have access. These are the references that we use this evening. If anyone would like to go see them at another time, you can feel free to do so as well. And we have our TA support. So if you're looking for some type of technical assistance as the school year is beginning, you can actually use this QR code as well to scan, and you can request a TA support as the school year begins. So you can do it on different areas if you're needing TA support in terms of the class system, pre-K class, your standards. You can feel free to use us, and we can support you in the future. And lastly, we just wanted to leave you with saying thank you so much for, just taking the time this evening and connecting with us, and really just being engaged throughout. And we are really appreciative of that. So I'll let Stephanie say parting words before we leave you this evening.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for being so attentive and so responsive today, this evening, within the webinar, throughout our questions and chat box and our polls. And thank you to Deborah for all the great information that you provided us as well. Like we said, once the attendance is inputted into the learning management system this evening, you will be able to access your post-test and survey evaluation. And remember, you must complete both of them. So don't complete one and then leave the other one hanging. Once you complete one, you'll see that the icon will change, and you click that icon to complete the survey. Once you complete the survey, the icon will change again and give you a beautiful certificate with your name already on it, and it will be stored in the LMS also for you if you ever happen to lose that certificate. So just so you know, that is a resource available to you. So we are going to say good evening to you all. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for your involvement this evening. We wish you a wonderful, fantastic, amazing school year ahead of you. And remember, we are out there to support you via our webinars, trainings, and technical assistance. Have a great evening, everybody.